to Where Are They Now? We reach into the archives of Lenape, Shawnee, Cherokee, and Seneca High Schools and invite selected alumni to share memories and fill us in on their career paths after commencement. Since Lenape's first graduating class in 1961, Shawnee's in 1972, Cherokee's in 1978, and Seneca's in 2005, over 65,000 individuals have received diplomas from these four schools. Here now is your host, DJ Deeney.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Where Are They Now? Today we'll be reconnecting with an alum from Shawnee's class of 2003, Amanda Lindquist. Amanda is an executive sous chef for the Westin Riverwalk Hotel in San Antonio, Texas. Thanks for joining us today, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, well, let's go back to high school. Shawnee, class of 2003. A lot of exciting times, I'm sure, as it's always exciting going through high school. It doesn't seem it necessarily at the time, but looking back, I'm sure it was. Tell me a little bit about your high school experience at Shawnee.
Sure. I mean, high school was a lot of fun. I always remember, I was never specific friends with one group of people. I always was friends with a bunch of different groups of people. So that kept high school interesting, always something to do and people to hang out with.
All right, now some of your activities, I know you were involved with sports early on in your high school career, and then also a lot of other activities. Can you tell us something that you did back then?
Sure. I played field hockey freshman and sophomore year, and then I got into track and field.
All right, now as far as the time period that you were in high school, a lot of interesting things were going on, and one specifically we were talking about before we went on the air. You were a sophomore, I believe, September 11th, 2001. Tell us a little bit about that experience, being in high school and that going on.
Sure. I remember exactly actually walking by the tech room, and I think it was the C building, that circular part of the building, and walking by and seeing the plane flying into the building and thinking, oh, they just must be doing something in the tech room. And it was in between second and third period, and then when I went down to home ec, which was Mrs. Kirk's home ec class, and she put it on TV down there. And that's when it all kind of hit and realized, what was going on exactly.
All right, now you had mentioned earlier on before we went on the air that you kind of always knew what you wanted to do for a living, and your senior quote, well, not your senior quote, but your future plans in the yearbook was to go to college and eventually own a restaurant. Now that obviously leads into your career choice, and when did you decide that you wanted to be involved with being a chef and that type of thing?
I don't know. I think I'm very lucky that I always knew. I remember being a sophomore in college and writing different letters to Le Cordon Bleu in Philadelphia and the Philadelphia School of Art, and just always knowing exactly that I wanted to be a chef and go into cooking. I think a lot of that has to do with growing up. My really good childhood friend was Erica Ciccatelli, and her family owned Cento Fine Foods, right out of, I believe it was out of Pennsauken. So just growing up around her and her family always cooking, creating, was always just a lot of fun. And, just the cooking, creating, bringing people together and enjoying food, was something that always I thought would be a good career choice for me.
Now, was that something that you kind of geared your high school career towards? Did you aim certain classes toward that, or did you just do it outside of school?
No, I mean, I definitely aimed towards that. I did a lot of the home ec stuff, things like that. I remember Mrs. Kirk and Mrs. Hilton, Lori Hilton, I think was her name. Her and I had a really good relationship back in the day. And no, I definitely always knew, even in high school, and tried to gear around that.
So you knew early on that's what you wanted to do. Take us through now the process of getting ready to apply to certain schools, where you wanted to go, and what went into all those thoughts.
Sure. Going to Johnson & Wales is always something that I had aspired to. It's more of you get more of a degree, where most culinary schools, a lot of times you just get a certificate. There was thoughts of going to Camden County College, which has a good culinary program also, kind of staying home, but I really kind of wanted that college experience. So I was looking at Johnson & Wales and the CIA, which is the Culinary Institute of America. That's in Hyde Park, New York. But Johnson & Wales is more of a college atmosphere. They have the business school as well downtown, so I went and got a culinary degree and a business degree as well. But it was really unique. There was a recipe competition that you had to submit recipes for and take different pictures of cooking, or different pictures of the recipes as you took them or as you created them. And that was really a cool experience, and ended up getting some grants for that.
You also had a minor in entertainment management, correct?
Correct. Yeah. During my business, the last 2 years, I got a bachelor's in business and food and restaurant management in the business college. And they had an option for a minor. So I minored in entertainment management, which was more large style conventions, catering, and kind of like costing out things for 1,000 to 5,000 people.
Now that's probably helped you more than you thought it would at the time, right?
Definitely more than I thought it would. Just being in a hotel, and the catering and convention aspect of things. You don't think about cooking for 2,000 people, but it happens.
Okay, now you finish up school, and was there internships or sort of like partnerships that you had going on with certain things in the area that led you into your current career?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a big thing that helped me in culinary school was I worked. I had a full-time job in culinary school. My freshman year, I did not have a job. I kind of just focused on getting acclimated to college career or college lifestyle, things like that. But then I did get a job in a kitchen, and that's why it's funny. I never really go home to New Jersey anymore, and I never did in college. Everybody got to go home for Thanksgiving break and winter break and see each other. And I always joke because I never went out the night before Thanksgiving. I always had a job in college. And especially being in food service, we're always open. Their holidays are open, so it's hard to get time off and kind of break away. So in college, I had a full-time job. So especially in my last 2 years, I worked for the Hilton on Providence, Rhode Island, and I was the executive sous chef of Don Shula's Steakhouse that was located in the Hilton. So I actually was a salaried position, so I worked 60 hours a week, and then my 2 days off, I went to school 14 hours a day. My 2 days off.
So it's not
work hard, play hard.
Right. So it's not just hey, I'm going to go cook something and you're done. You're pretty much going all the time.
Now, it's a full-time commitment being a chef, that's for sure.
Now, as far as your process and going to school and then finishing up school, have you seen it change much with today's situation in the way that the universities partner with certain hotels and restaurants and that thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you need to realize the opportunities that you have. I was fortunate enough to get my job through Johnson & Wales is a really big career-driven. I think it's 98% of all graduates graduate with a full-time job. So they have a huge career development center and things like that. So I think it's important to take advantage of those. And having a culinary degree definitely gets your foot in the door. But I do think it's important to realize that kids nowadays, just because you graduate with a culinary degree does not make you a chef.
Right.
It's years of hard work and time put in, and it's not the most high-paying job in the beginning. I remember I took my first job in college making $10 an hour. But it's dedication, it's passion for what you do, and it's just driving yourself to get to the next level. So that's one thing that's important for anyone that wants to be a chef now. Realize that it's a lot of hard work and hours put in.
Okay, now take us from getting out of college to where you are now. What process did you go through there? Where did you make stops along the way and ultimately end up where you are now?
Sure. So like I said, I was hired through our career development program. We had a job fair, career fair that December. And I had a few different job opportunities, one with Marriott, one with Starwood Hotels, which is the company that I work for now. I also had an opportunity to fly down to St. Martin's and be the chef at a yacht club, which was hard to pass up, but at the end of the day, I ended up going with the longevity, the long-term opportunity. So that was how I got hired into Starwood. I think I was one of 7 culinary students that was picked to be in the Starwood Corporate Management Training Program. So Starwood is based out of White Plains, New York. They encompass Westin, Sheraton, Aloft, St. Regis, W Hotels, La Meridian, and then there's also like a luxury collection. So I was hired at the time I was living in Providence, Rhode Island, and I was hired into that culinary management training program, which is an 18-month program, and that's how I ended up in Tucson, Arizona. So they sent me to the Westin La Paloma Resort and Spa in Tucson. That was an 18-month training program where I got to tour around the entire hotel, not just the kitchen. I worked in the front office, security, rooms, housekeeping, to really get a whole aspect of the hotel life and how that works. And then when that program was up in 18 months, they offered me a full-time position there as a sous chef. So I started off as the banquet sous chef, which was interesting. It was a morning position, so I worked 3 a.m. till about 4 p.m. every day. So that was something definitely that you had to get used to. I'll never eat eggs like I would for on a buffet in a hotel. I think it's just years of cooking eggs for 2,000 people that you kind of get sick of it. But no, so that was definitely an interesting position, the banquet morning sous chef. Then they wanted to revamp the 3 meal a day restaurant within the hotel. So they transferred me over to that, so I got promoted to chef de cuisine. So I ran the 3 meal a day restaurant, which also put out in-room dining. It was called Azul. We transitioned it from the Desert Garden to Azul restaurant. And then I had done such a good job kind of heading that up and was so driven and motivated that they kind of created this position called managing chef. So it was like a general manager of the restaurant. I still wore a chef's coat, but it was called the managing chef because I was more kitchen based, but I was in charge of the front and the back of the house. So I did that. I was in Arizona a total of about 3.5 years. And then from there, the good thing about working for Starwood is there's a great opportunity to transfer around the company. There's so many hotels worldwide, let alone nationwide. So from there, I transferred to the St. Regis in Park City, Utah. So that was a really, really great opportunity, a really unique experience. Learned a lot about refinement and elegance and working for St. Regis. The average one-night stay there is $700 in season. So, you're cooking for people that have a high expectation. And that was also where I met a lot of famous people. St. Regis Park City has Sundance Film Festival, I'm sure you're familiar with.
Right.
So there was always a lot of crazy people, or not crazy people, but always a lot of really famous people there.
It was crazy for you, I'm sure, having to cook for those people. Who were some of the most famous people that you've cooked for then?
Probably the most famous one, the most unique experience cooking for someone was when I cooked for President Bush in Tucson. They have to do a background check, and then the Secret Service stands there and kind of watches you while you cook.
He was the president at the time?
Correct, yes, he was the current president at the time. So that was kind of a unique experience. And then each president has their own candy. I remember that. So he gave us like a few peanut M&Ms with the presidential seal on it. But no, I'm like, at the St. Regis, like it wouldn't be ridiculous to say. I remember walking through the hotel one day and there was Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt just standing there having a conversation. You don't really recognize famous people right up front, but it was just kind of cool, something unique. Of course, because of my job and position, you can't go up to them and talk to them or ask for autographs or anything like that. But you meet a lot of cool people and unique opportunities.
Now, I know you pretty much approach every job and assignment the same, but is there a little more pressure inside your head when you know that you're cooking for the president or you're cooking for someone?
I always like to say that everybody's a VIP. That's my thing. Everybody, even if it's someone special, I'm always like, well, everybody's a VIP in my head. But of course, there's a lot of pressure. I think that regardless, what I do every day is pressure. Everyone's a critic. Everybody has special, unique tastes. You don't want to disappoint, that's for sure. But yeah, there's definitely added pressure when it's someone famous, someone with a voice.
Right. Now, you moved from the East Coast to West Coast and then kind of back, and was that a difficult transition, especially with the hours that you were taking on?
Sure. Yeah, it's been a difficult transition. Hard work has paid off. I used to say, oh, I was very lucky. I was lucky for the opportunities that I was given. I was lucky to have the jobs that I've been given. But now I've learned to say, I'm not lucky. It's hard work and perseverance that have paid off. It's not easy to pick up, move across the country. I moved to Tucson. I didn't know anybody. And that's kind of how it's been. I move around the country and just kind of pick up and reinvent myself every time. It's not easy to not have like a safety net and things like that, but I have a very, very close family and they're just a phone call away, and they always come and visit me and things like that. But part of being a chef is sacrifices. I miss birthdays, holidays, weddings. I haven't been home for Christmas in 4 or 5 years. So that's kind of like the downfall of it. But I love what I do. It's very rewarding, and I wouldn't change anything. But that's definitely something that a young chef needs to keep in mind. I try to tell my staff that all the time too. It's a holiday, we're open, especially in a hotel. It's 24/7. So it's just something that people need to keep in mind going into this business.
Well, I remember we were speaking earlier. Something very specific that happened to you is when your father got hurt and you were cross country. That right there, I don't know if you want to talk a little more about it. It was a perfect example of not being able to just pick up and leave and head out in an emergency.
And I feel guilty there. A lot of times, you miss things and you feel guilty. And my mom always, now that her and my dad are getting older, of course, my next transition, I kind of want to move more towards the East Coast. But no, my dad got very sick when I lived in Tucson. And, I wanted to fly home immediately, but, he was in a coma. There was really nothing that I could do. So I just kind of dove even more into my work. You can get very distracted and dive deep into things and kind of block them out if you want to. And that's kind of what I had to do to stay focused at work. It's just so time consuming and demanding. What I do is so emotional that to bring other emotions into it really kind of, plays a part on it. So just kind of, blocking it out. I mean, I did fly home that Easter and see him and things like that. But again, he was in a coma, so we kind of just sat around. I mean, it's a little depressing, but he's fully recovered now.
Right.
And
just another sacrifice, though, that if somebody going into this field, needs to know that it's not just like come and go as you please and, get a day off here and there.
When you call out or when you don't show up or you show up late or you don't get your station set up, you're letting down the whole team. Everything kind of has to come together to be one cohesive meal and entree. There's different things that go into creating a dish, and if someone calls out, everybody else has to pick up the slack. So, just something that I kind of pride myself on,
right.
And I talk to my staff about all the time. I mean, just this week I had knee surgery. I tore my meniscus in 4 different places, and I went to the doctor and finally got the MRI. I've been kind of dragging my feet to get the MRI, and the doctor asked me, "How are you walking around and working the hours that you do with 4 tears in your meniscus?" And I told him I was from New Jersey, and he had a good chuckle about that. But
you had a ton of accomplishments since getting the position you're currently in. Can you talk about some of those things, some of the high points that you've had?
Sure. Let's see. Well, I mean, the first kind of major accomplishment was being selected into that culinary program with Starwood Hotels. It's really kind of gotten my name known in the company, and the fact that I've been in the company, I just celebrated my 7-year anniversary. So that was kind of my first major accomplishment. 2010, I was manager of the year for the Westin La Paloma. And so I was manager of the 4th quarter, and then ended up getting manager of the year. That was just due to revamping the restaurant and kind of putting life back into that hotel, the main part of the restaurant. That year I was also nominated in Arizona for the, I forget what award it was, something with the Tucson elementary schools. I don't know if you're familiar with the Chefs Moves to School program. So it was a Michelle Obama initiative to kind of get chefs involved in schools.
Okay.
So while I was working in Tucson, I also volunteered at this elementary school, Brickta Elementary School. So every Wednesday I went and taught 2nd and 3rd graders how to count calories, how to burn calories, how to create things without adding fats and oils. And, it's crazy to me. I'll never forget the first day I went in and held up a tomato, and kids thought it was an apple. So it's really crazy how kids in underdeveloped or underprivileged school districts, really had no idea what resources were around them, especially in Tucson. It's so hot. There's an abundance of fruit and vegetables. So just kind of, teaching them that in the elementary school. Let's see. Then I was nominated from one of the director of security. I was nominated in the Arizona Hotel Lodging Association for Manager of the Year. I did not win, but I was nominated in 2010. And then most recently, I was just won Manager of the Year in 2014 for the Western Riverwalk. Yeah, thank you. So I was Manager of the Year 1st quarter, 2014, and then we just had our kind of yearly party, and I was granted Manager of the Year. So hard work does pay off, believe it or not.
So you have that coming up as far as that award, and also you mentioned a cooking competition you're going to be entering?
Correct. Starwood had this competition where, every executive sous chef and executive chef in the company was able to create an appetizer. You had to cost it out. It had to be under $5, things like that. So I had created a lamb belly cheddar, like kind of a take on a pork cheddar. So I'd created that and submitted it to this website, and the website got emailed out to everybody in the company, and people voted on their favorite appetizer. So I was one of the top 5 appetizers selected. So I'll be flying to Chicago at the end of this month now to compete in a competition. It's kind of like a chop style competition. We have an hour to cook we only have to create 5 plates, but we're on a stage and there's 5,000 people from the company watching. So the pressure will be fierce, I'm sure. But it's a chop competition. It's a 1-hour competition. I know what's going to be in the pantry, but there's going to be like a secret ingredients. There'll be 2 proteins, either meat and a fish, or a fish and a fish, or meat and meat. And then there's going to be a secret ingredient of either a vegetable or a fruit that I'm going to have to incorporate into the dish as well.
Now, there's obviously a ton of these shows out now. You mentioned one just now. Like, what do you think about that when you watch them? Do you sit there and go, "Oh wow, I would win this one," or
Right.
is it
It's
more?
funny too. When I watch Chopped, I always pause it and try and think of what I would create. So I've been watching that a little bit more lately with this competition coming up. But no, I mean, I think it's great. Top Chef. I mean, I've gone to school with a few people that have been on Top Chef. I think it's a great opportunity. Everybody always says to me, "Oh, why don't you do Top Chef? Why don't you do something?" I'm just so competitive, and I'm so passionate. I'm afraid that if I didn't win or I didn't succeed, I would just break myself down about it. But no, I mean, that's something that maybe I'll pursue in the future. Let's see how this one Chopped competition goes first.
Do you think it's overall it's a good thing for your industry that there's so much exposure, or is it a negative?
I mean, I think it's good and it's negative. I think that it's great that people, see the passion, the hard work, and the stress that goes into being a chef and dealing with what we deal with. But I do think though that kids nowadays just go into cooking because they think it's just going to be fun. It's going to be a good opportunity, and it is. But they don't understand the hard work that goes into it. People want to come out of culinary school making 50 grand a year, working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and that is not going to happen. My first job was 30 grand a year out of culinary school with student loans, ridiculous student loans, and working 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. So that's something that, people need to take into consideration. Here in San Antonio, we had a Culinary Institute of America, actually. And I interview a lot of the kids, and they come out of the culinary school with their chef coat and their name already on it, and they think that they're a chef. And you don't want to break anyone's spirit or break them down, but you need to get them the reality of you need to work from the ground up. Work as a dishwasher, then get on the line, then see the production and things and how things go into running a restaurant. A lot of kids just graduate and think that they're going to buy a restaurant and it's going to be roses. Like you mentioned in the beginning, my goal was to eventually buy a restaurant or run a restaurant. I don't know if I would ever own my own restaurant. You need a lot of capital. There's a lot of things that go into it. And, working this many years in the culinary industry has definitely opened my eyes to that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned seeing these kids come out of school and talking to them. When you say kids, though, you're referring to like kids out of college. Because I actually saw a new show, I don't know, I guess it's new, where it's actually kids, like 8-year-olds cooking. Have you seen this one yet? Have you seen that yet?
The young master chefs or something?
Yes, I think so. It's crazy.
And there was actually an article that just came out. There's a kid in New York that's like 9 years old that is catering and does all this stuff. I remember seeing an article on Eater about him.
I guess it's a good thing that the field is getting that kind of exposure at such a young age, where there'll be more chefs coming up eventually.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's kind of why I got into teaching and volunteering with these elementary kids. I always knew what I wanted to do. I don't know. I think I'm very fortunate that I still remember friends sophomore, junior year of college still switching their majors around. And I think that I was always driven and self-motivated. I knew exactly what I want to do. So that's why I kind of wanted to teach in the elementary schools, get other people to realize, how much fun creating and cooking is and can be, and how much, you need to know how to do that in your life,
Definitely. Now, any advice that you would have for not necessarily college students, but students that are currently in the Lenape District as far as their going forward, their future? What advice would you offer to them?
I mean, if you want to be a chef, get experience. I mean, school was great, and I don't regret going to college, but you learn so much more hands-on in a kitchen. No two kitchens are the same, too, so don't be afraid to kind of jump around and learn different experiences and work for different chefs and kind of take in everything that you can. But I definitely think that if you're in college and you're in culinary school, or even if you're in high school, I mean, in high school I worked at Lamberti's, the Italian restaurant there in Medford. If you want to cook, definitely get exposure in a restaurant setting, just to kind of see how everything works.
Well, you're definitely a great example of somebody who's been driven and is not really shied away from anything and get and achieve their goals. So we're very proud of you in the Lenape District for achieving your goals. And I'd like to thank you for joining us today on Where Are They Now?
Yeah, thank you.
We've been speaking with Shawnee alum Amanda Lindquist, an executive sous chef for the Westin Riverwalk Hotel in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Where Are They Now? We'll see you next time.